Huzzah!
Hi.
Hello, hello. Nice to see you.
Oh, yeah, nice to see you. Nice to meet you and talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining me. Um, okay. I kind of like to take these more conversationally style. I feel like I give that disclaimer every single time, and it feels so
Uh-huh.
awkward every time. But I guess just to start off, how would you describe yourself? What's your gig? Like, who are you according to yourself? If that makes
Yeah, so I'm nominal Naomi. I'm mostly known for talking about like trans topics, especially from more of like a science and academic side of things. I really like to dive into like the peer-reviewed research on like how HRT actually affects our bodies and just like all the aspects of like trans people in their lives. I'm also known as a bit of a debate sis. I found my following doing like live debates over on TikTok, and yeah, I've had some pretty big moments in the spotlight from when I debated Kelly Cadigan, and that was a whole crazy spiel. As
Yeah.
well as when I went mega viral with the far right attacking me for being a transgender woman who induced lactation. So those are kind of some of the big things that I'm known for. But yeah,
Yeah.
really excited to be here, and I also love the conversational approach. So yeah, go for it. Let's do this.
Okay, awesome. And I do want to talk about kind of all of your crazy experiences, or not crazy experiences, but
Mhm.
like your um the crazy backlash to your experiences a little
Yeah,
later. But
absolutely.
like, how did you get started with content creation or like doing this, being a streamer, making content, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I first really found my start over on TikTok, and originally, like, I had always been kind of interested in like content creation, and I had a couple of friends that were doing like a little bit of like TikTok stuff at the time, and I was like, okay, I want to try this, and so I started making just like some shit posty like trans jokes or whatever, and those actually gained a little bit of traction. I was kind of surprised. And then as I started getting a little bit more of a following, I was like, okay, well, I've also really been into politics and like debates and wanted to try like the TikTok live debate sphere. So I actually have like a pretty decent platform over on like the TikTok live streaming platform for like people like you can cycle like in and out viewers that just like request to join and debate them. And I kind of really blew up over on like the TikTok debate sphere. I ended up with like almost 200,000 followers on TikTok. And by that point, I was definitely seeing like reasons why TikTok wasn't as sustainable as a platform. Like unless you're just trending all the time, like you're kind of a sitting duck in TikTok in a lot of ways. And so I was trying to like transition things over to Twitch, do some more like reaction style content, interviews, this kind of thing. And I've been kind of taking like some breaks here and there, especially as of lately. But yeah, still very excited and interested in whatever I can do in making the world a better place for trans people, queer people, etc.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that at least myself, I definitely appreciate what you're doing. And you're all over my feeds as well because
Hey,
I get a lot of trans content. But I guess one question I have is like, did you want to kind of be a public face when you were younger, or is that something that you kind of just fell into when you were older?
it really is more something that I kind of fell into. I don't know, like I never really had like super big dreams about like, oh, I want to be like the really popular YouTuber influencer, whatever. I honestly I thought that like a lot of like that kind of culture was very cringe, like when I was a teenager.
Hmm.
And I mean the most I did with like social media, like kind of growing up was like being more of like a lurker on Reddit. But then yeah, I was just like, I'm just gonna make a couple little jokes, do a little politics stuff, and like it really just like blew up and it's like, oh wow, now I actually have a platform and there's people that care about what I say and oh gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah. What is it like kind of being in the starlight? I don't know. I don't think in the limelight. I think limelight is the right word to use here. But like what is
Yeah.
that? How does
I
that feel, I guess?
There's a lot of pressure on like a lot of different sides. On like one end, like I feel a pressure like, I really want to be like putting content out there. I want to be like doing things that are gonna have an impact on people. And at the same time it's like you also have like a really pressure like I want to get everything like exactly right. I don't want to have like anything that I slip up on. Like feeling like I'm responsible for like the quality of the content I put out and it's gonna be a lot to weigh on you. It really is.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense with like feeling that pressure, I guess. Is this something that
Mhm.
you want to do long term, or is it something that you're just like doing now while you're finishing your PhD? Or did you finish your PhD? I don't really know how the
No,
PhD
I
process
still have about
works.
a year to go on my PhD. I'm done with like all of my coursework, and so now I just have like basically dissertation hours left to go. And so that's a lot more like self-motivated, self-directed, which also means like my schedule is like very, very flexible, but also kind of tight at the same time.
Yeah. What is your PhD on? Or if you're comfortable sharing. Or is there
Yeah,
anything we
so
can't talk about?
um I not planning on going like too much into like family private stuff.
Okay, okay.
But and I can't go too much into detail about my PhD or else it's pretty easy to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
But kind of like high level, I do software security, particularly in like open source domains, like kind of the open source software that people use to build other software. How can we make that more secure? Can we find like either like malicious actors or just like phenomenon that are happening in the open source software community that are impacting security like downstream for end users and developers and things like that.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting. Have you always kind of been interested in like technology and
Mhm. Yeah, I
security, I guess?
definitely always had like a really technological background, was always into like computers and video games, and I started programming in like middle school, and it just seemed like a really great path with like the computer science program. And it was towards the end of my undergrad program, I was basically like offered like a PhD sponsorship by a professor that I really liked, and it was like, this is an amazing opportunity. I can do research, I can earn my PhD for free, and yeah, I was like, absolutely, sign me up.
Yeah, that's really cool. What is your okay, okay. I have a couple questions. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
go for it.
curious what kind of stuff you were programming in middle school. I'm also curious what your favorite video game is because you said you're like a gamer. So I guess
Hmm.
I'll throw those both out and then you can
Okay.
hit them
What
as
was
you
I
want.
programming in middle school? I was programming Minecraft mods in middle school.
Based.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then nowadays, favorite video game, I've got to go with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It's just like, such a flawlessly executed game, and it feels so tight and amazing, and oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. I'm curious. I know you don't want to get too deep, but if
Hmm.
you are willing to talk about it at all, I'm curious what it was like for you. I guess growing up, or like family dynamics. Not really the dynamics, but like
Hmm.
at like a high level. Like, were you from a religious family? Were you from a non-religious family? Were you from like a, I don't know, liberal, conservative? Just like, does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I came from a very religious conservative family, and that was pretty yikes. Like my exposure to any queer stuff was, I mean, strictly demonization until like I actually met queer people in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were kind of the like reactions, I guess, when you ended up coming out? Or sorry, you came out after you were like out of the house, right?
Yeah. No, I came out when I was like 21, and I've been medically transitioning for about 6 months by the time that I came out to my parents. I
Mhm.
actually came out to my siblings like way before that. My siblings are super cool, love them. They're awesome, really close friends of mine. And then the reaction of my parents was really, really bad. Um, but like eventually they got to a point where they're like, okay, we're gonna like tolerate this, see where this goes, whatever. And then about 2.5 years later, it was actually literally over like this winter, this Christmas, they kind of just blew up on me, and I'm not on speaking terms with my mom anymore. And then I'm trying to kind of reestablish some things with my dad, but it's complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah, it definitely is complicated. Mm. Sorry, my brain is blinking.
All good, all good.
I guess one question that I do have. Well, okay, let me ask a couple community
Mhm.
questions. ChatGPT wants to
Oh,
know
go for it, go
what your
for it.
favorite type of cheese is.
Favorite type of cheese? Ooh, I love like really, really sharp cheeses, like a really, really sharp like red or white cheddar. I'm also a big Parmesan, like Asiago Parmesan stan.
Based. Okay. Um, Somebody else wants to know, how does public debating and similar lead to productive change?
Yeah, so I think that the most like productive change you're gonna get from public debating is gonna happen within like a small portion of the audience that you're interacting with. So like within any kind of debate thing, like you're gonna have an audience on your side, they're gonna have an audience on their side, and most of those people on both ends are gonna be pretty unmovable. But there's a little sliver, like in the middle, that is movable on some things. And I think that you can genuinely reach those people, especially like as far as getting people more interested in something, getting something to be like, oh gosh, I want to learn more about this. And also like you can use it to help educate your own side. both on like rhetorical techniques as well as like just like really cool, interesting factoids. Like I know people have always told me like it's crazy like how much I learned from like watching you debate and like all the little like factoids and studies and things you pull up.
Yeah. Somebody also wanted to know, like, how do you balance like giving people information and changing their minds versus not coming
Hmm.
across as like hostile or like I don't want to say aggressive, but like how do you
Mm.
build bridges to those that don't agree with you while also like maintaining those connections? Does that make sense? Is the
Yeah,
question
yeah.
coming through?
It's really gonna depend on like the person you're debating. Um, like there are definitely moments where like you can see that somebody's like coming at this in good faith and like they're open to like hearing out new ideas, new information. And those cases are gonna handle a lot different than somebody who clearly has no indication of like I mean even paying attention to what's going on around them other than just wanting to like call you a groomer over and over again.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're gonna handle those situations a lot differently. Like in the second case where it's like you're arguing with someone who's bad faith that they really have nothing of substance to bring to the table. Like your goal is just to clown on them, just to like make them look ridiculous to their own audience. And meanwhile, if somebody is like seems genuinely interested in the conversation, engaged and open to new information, then that's when you really want to like hammer down on things from like a very empathetic and understanding and like we're all learning together kind of approach.
From your experiences, would you say that you encounter more of type 1 or type 2?
A lot more of like the bad faith, absolutely.
That's a bummer. What do you
Yeah.
think makes people so inspired to argue in bad faith? Because I feel like we see a lot of this, especially with the recent like Chris Tyson situation, which I don't know
Mm.
enough of the details about, but I do know there's a lot of bad faith individuals like talking
Yeah.
about it. But like, do you think anything can really be done, or do you think it's kind of just like you just kind of gotta mock them a little bit and just deal with it?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends. I think that on one hand, like a lot of it comes from like just people trying to earn their W's in like a culture war context. Um, and I think that like if you have a more nuanced audience, you can really point out like, hey, this is just a manufactured culture war. Like this is how they're creating outrage, even though this is something they don't care about, and that like they're not gonna police within their own communities. Like I mean, we can see just like the huge difference in how things have been handled with like Ava versus Dr. Disrespect. And then like one of those person actually tried to have sex with a minor and it wasn't the trans person, big surprise.
Yeah,
Like but then like I think that as far as like dealing with people that are like really in the bad faith culture war, like all that you can do is either like ridicule or just try to like create an understanding of how manufactured and fake it all is.
that definitely makes sense. Um, Sorry, I have all the questions opened up in Notepad, but it
Oh, all good,
doesn't
all good.
it doesn't do text wrapping, so I'm missing
Oh
half the
no.
question. Okay, somebody said, I feel like a lot of content online is kind of preaching to the choir kinda, and
Mhm.
is some some if viewed by those who come in disagreeing would just leave even more upset. Oh, that was the how do we build bridges question.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Do you think the average person fighting for trans rights should focus more locally or nationally or like somewhere in between?
Ooh, oh gosh, there's kind of a couple things that go off there. I think one, what was the first thing you brought up? It was about like before the nationally or locally question.
Yeah,
Or was it sort of like a follow up to the previous question? I had something I wanted to say about that. What was that one again? Sorry.
somebody said I feel like a lot of content online is kind of preaching to the choir, and some, if viewed by those who come in disagreeing, they would just leave even more upset.
Yes, no, that's absolutely true. Like anybody that's done enough of a deep dive into like their YouTube analytics or TikTok analytics, like you will find that like your core audience is very much like invested in like already agreeing with like 99% of what you're gonna say. A lot of people like the most common like person who's gonna watch this type of content like uses it for like edutainment purposes, where it's like they're already on that same side as you, but they just like the like kind of the combination of learning some new facts and the entertainment of conveying information, debates, etc., etc. Um, but what's really interesting about that is the other side of things is like when you get the most like kind of outside audience like viewership is when you generate outrage. Like we've seen some like analysis of these type of algorithmic content mills, and the two things that they really focus on is audience capture and then like outrage if you're going to get a new audience, because like when people get angry they will watch longer, comment, the kind of stuff that the algorithm is really looking for. And so it can be a really tricky line to tread where like you want to generate enough outrage that like you get some cross audience viewership, but also enough that like you're not just pissing them off and making them disregard you. And that's a really fine line to tread.
Yeah. Has it gotten easier over time, or do you think it's been more difficult as well? Maybe you would disagree with my next statement, but I feel like the more time goes on, the more like separate all these sides are getting. So do you feel like it's been easier to kind of thread the needle on that line, or would you say it's more difficult as like things progress?
Yeah, I think that like these kind of like on time online content clicks have definitely become a lot more insular and a lot more like consolidated. And you have a lot less people kind of bridging gaps. So it is easier to kind of generate that outrage. And if it's easier to generate that outrage, then you can kind of like tune from there as far as like creating at least somewhat productive engagement.
That makes sense. Now I do want to go back to the other question. Do you
Yeah.
think that the average person fighting for trans rights should focus more locally or nationally or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think that in all likelihood, the biggest impact that you're going to be able to have as an individual is on like the local level. There are a lot of like great organizations around the country, in especially like more liberal cities, that are fighting for trans rights locally, that are showing up to protest like bill hearings, getting people speaking at those bill hearings. Those have a huge impact. And like really individually, you're going to have far more impact doing local organizing. And the great thing is that like there's a lot of organizations out there that can get you invested and get you doing something that's helpful. And even if you're more like a small town, there's also a lot of great organizations online that do say like more national canvassing efforts. I did an event with the Progressive Victory folks, and they've got some pretty nice infrastructure for getting people involved with canvassing. As well as I've heard of Progress Libs. Like, there's a lot of organizations out there, both nationally and locally, that you can get yourself involved in. And I can assure you that unless you have like a huge following online, you're going to make a much bigger impact doing that than posting tweets.
Yeah,
And I think that even for people that do have a decent following, sometimes tweeting more is actually not going to do any better.
yeah. You mentioned that you're big into politics. I'm curious if you've done a lot of like political activism work and what your experiences with that have been.
I've done a little bit. I've done a little bit of some local stuff, kind of in my community, as well as some stuff with some more like canvassing organizations across the country. I did the Progressive Victory event where we were canvassing for Jamal Bowman over in New
Mhm.
York, and that was a really cool experience. Getting to see like kind of those on the ground interactions with real voters and how they're a lot easier and more accessible to actually talk to than your average person you're going to interact with online. Like the people that touch grass and actually vote, like they're a different breed of people, and they're actually easier and nicer to talk to.
Yeah. What was that like? I'm sure, not dealing with people that seem to spew vitriol, it was
Hmm.
nice. But like what you said, like people that touch grass, like can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, like these are people that are generally like, at least as far as the ones that you can actually get a conversation with. Like there'll be, your fair share of people that are like, just go away, or I'll take a flyer and leave, or whatever. But the people that like want to have those conversations, like they're very engaged. They often have a lot of questions. They're often very inquisitive, and like if you kind of like plant some seeds, you can get them to like go down some like lines of thinking. Like the one that we found like really effective was like talking to voters about like, why do you think it is that like this other guy who's running against Jamal Bowman is like really backed by like all this MAGA like Republican money in terms of donors? Like why is that? And like you can really get some awesome engagement with these types of people, and it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting experience. What would you kind of recommend for people wanting to get into something like that? Like where would you
Yeah.
recommend they go, etc.?
So there's a lot of canvassing efforts both locally and nationally. If you can find something on the local level, that's probably where you can make the most impact. So just like search for like canvassing organizations, particularly for key races in your state or your district. And if not, there's a couple of like online or like countrywide groups like Progressive Victory. You can always look at Progressive Victory, Progress Libs. They do a bunch of events, including like phone banking, as well as in-person events, which are a lot of fun. And you can meet tons of people who are very like-minded at those kind of events too, which is really cool. Seeing like the community building.
Awesome. Um, okay, and then in comparison, so this is like a two-parter.
Hmm.
What do you think, or sorry, where do you think most people put their, where do you think, oh my gosh, I can't read. And then in comparison, where do you think people put most of their attention right now? Like versus where they should be versus where they are?
Yeah, I would say that probably where most people put their attention right now is consuming content, like scrolling through feeds on TikTok or YouTube or Twitter, and like it 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 can be pretty bad for your brain to just be consuming all this content all the time and not actually doing anything about it. Like the Brit like people have these like very emotional reactions to the content they consume, and it's what gets us like hooked on watching it again and again and again. And it's it's the same kind of emotional reactions that get the right wingers that just comment like hate and vitriol all over your feed. Like there's similar emotional reactions happening in you, even if they elicit different emotions that keep you hooked and like on your couch and not doing anything. And it's also like really isolating. Like being apart from real people um is really, really isolating when like doing this in-person stuff, building community, talking with real people, like the way that it impacts your brain is just vastly different, and it's so much better on like the local organizing side of things. Like you will be surprised at like how good you feel about, wow, I accomplished something. Like even if you didn't win your goal, it was like, I feel great, I actually did something about this. And I think
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I've also done some like local canvassing, and I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's really nice to like build community with other people that are
Hmm.
more reasonable than a lot of the people we see on the internet. Um,
Yeah.
Going back to like things specifically about you, I do want to talk a little
Hmm.
bit about some of your, I guess, blow ups.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. What would you say like some of the craziest experiences you've had online are?
I think that my debate with Kelly Cadigan and then the reaction to talking about breastfeeding as a trans woman have been the craziest blow-ups I've seen throughout my entire history.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know how familiar you are with either of those situations, but we can talk about both if you're interested.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the debate with Kelly Cadigan, basically it was when she was on like her right-wing grift shit,
Yeah.
and I had
Her
done like a
D-trans,
couple,
I'm a man.
yeah, and I'd done like a couple call-ups of her on TikTok, eventually baiting her to debate with me. And there's this full 3-hour debate on my YouTube channel where, oh my gosh, it's just absolutely insane how like awful she was the entire time. And then like out of nowhere, she starts defending slavery for no reason in the debate, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the clips of that went like mega viral on TikTok, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
Would you say that she was good faith or in good faith and just uninformed or bad faith?
Oh, she was bad faith, out like 100%, 100%. But she made it really easy to clown on her.
Yeah, I believe it. I feel like that whole session. I don't even know if she's still doing it or if there's he. I don't remember what pronouns that Kelly
I
Cadigan
I think
identifies with at the moment. But
I think the current lore is she, her, and she's on the Kamala train now. So, power to her.
yeah, I see. Definitely running the grift train. But wow, I
Just
feel
stop on
like
every station, you know.
yeah. I feel like it was really easy to clown on her, and I saw so many people everywhere kind of just like dumping on her. But
Yeah.
your debate with her was really good. I actually have watched that.
Hey, nice, nice.
Yeah. Okay, so the like breastfeeding thing. Do you
Mhm.
want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So I mean, this was a while back. I'm not gonna go too much into like personal family stuff, like to respect their
Yeah.
privacy
Of
and
course, of course.
also because it was like really scary with all like the death threats and hate that I was getting over this. But like long story short, trans women can lactate. You can induce lactation. It's just a hormonal process. So you would just take essentially an extra hormone which raises your prolactin levels, and then you're able to lactate. by establishing a breast pumping regimen. And like I work with my doctor to be able to do this safely, and even got like my breast milk tested by a lab to check all the nutrients and stuff, and everything was exactly where it should be. Big surprise. And just the amount of like hate and attacks that I got from the right wing once they discovered this was unlike anything I had ever seen before. I mean, like really anything involving like queer people and I mean, what is like literally a traditional family just makes them go crazy.
Yeah. Two questions. One, what
Mhm.
is the hormone?
So there's a couple different medicines that you could take. Basically, there's a class of medicines known as galactagogues, which essentially raise prolactin levels. Often they're like a side effect of what the medicine was first discovered to do. Like one of the more common ones, at least in Europe, was this like nausea medicine that also happens to raise prolactin levels because of how it interacts with dopamine. And that's one that's pretty commonly used. There's a couple others that are more commonly used in the US because that main ones used in Europe, domperidone isn't prescribed in the US. So it kind of depends on where you're at, but yeah, basically any galactagogue should do.
Okay. And then my second question is kind of just a hypothetical. I don't even know if the initial statement I'm going to make has any basis, but I feel like I've read
Hmm.
it somewhere. I feel like I've read that when babies are breastfeeding on their mother, the mother's body produces like things that are specific to what the baby needs, or like if the baby gets
Hmm.
sick, the breast milk will like create the things that are specifically tailored to the baby.
Yes.
I'm curious if that also is the case with with like other people that are not the pregnancy haver. So like that could be you,
Hmm.
or it could be like, I don't know, like a communal breastfeeding kind of situation.
Yeah. So
Does that also do the same thing?
to my knowledge, yes. It seems that like it's just an effect of like actually doing the breastfeeding itself. So we've observed this like with wet nurses before, where like when a wet nurse like starts breastfeeding a child, like her milk composition is going to change. And like I've also seen this with like sickness when I was breastfeeding, and yeah, it is absolutely something that I've observed in myself, at least anecdotally, and based off of like what we know about how this works in like wet nurses. Yes, that seems to be the case.
That's really interesting. That's really cool.
Hmm.
Human
Yeah,
bodies
right.
are human bodies are crazy.
Yeah, really, really, really fascinating. I mean, like humans are just mammals. So, like everybody's born with the mammary glands and ducts that would be needed to lactate. It's just like whether or not you can is an on-off hormonal switch, basically.
Do you think cis men that haven't had breast development through like feminizing HRT could also induce successful like lactation to the
Yeah.
extent that they
Uh-huh.
could?
So we've done studies on this. Usually their supply is pretty low. It seems that like a lot of the like pubertal changes that would happen during a female puberty or when you start taking HRT really help to develop like volume and like the capacity to produce like higher quantities of milk. But we have had studies. I mean, there's also like different things that can happen within like a cis male body. Like certain tumors can cause prolactin levels to like shoot up way high, and then they start lactating. And we've even like tested the nutrient quality of their milk, and it was also found to be exactly what it was for normal lactating women.
That's insane.
Yeah, right?
Bodies are really crazy. Okay. Let me see. Sorry.
I know, right? Fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's extremely fascinating. Okay, let me delete the questions. Sorry.
Yeah, go
I
for it. No worries. And feel
Okay.
free to take your time. I am not in a rush in any way.
What is the best planet in Outer Wilds?
Ooh, best planet? Oh my gosh. Gosh, that's really hard. I mean, it might be the Ash Twin because it's so like unassuming at first, but like the more you know, the more it's just like, wow, this planet's got so much on it.
What's the lore about it? Somebody else asked that question, so I don't
Mhm.
really know. Like, I've never played that game.
Oh, it'd be such a spoiler if I go like it'd be like a game ruining spoiler if I give you the lore about it.
That's okay. So, spoiler alert for anybody that's going to play the game. I'm probably not going to play the game. Could you spoil it?
No, my girlfriend's in the room. She's playing. I
Oh my
can't. I
gosh.
can't.
No, okay. I understand. I understand. I understand. Um, how can we be sure that we don't mischaracterize other people's arguments?
Um, are you talking about like in kind of like a live debate setting or just like when responding to people in general?
Yes.
Okay. I think that the easiest way to do this is with when you're in like a live debate setting and you're arguing with someone who's in good faith, where you can just like be very clear, like, okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is this, or what you think is that. Like doing like the kind of like reflective listening stuff where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
let me just check in, make sure like I'm understanding you correctly. You believe this to be true. Is that correct? And like really hammer them down with a yes or no. And you can even do that with like some bad faith people sometimes too, where it's like hold up. You're spewing a lot of stuff. Let me just make sure I understood you correctly. You said this. Is that what you said? And like eventually you can get them to answer that. If you don't have someone who's like live right there, then it's a lot harder, especially if they're kind of like bad faith and they can just always say no matter what, like, oh, you're misinterpreting me. Um, but there are things you can do with like including like, longer quotes or like right here they said this. I'm gonna interpret their meaning this, and like you can attempt to do that. I think it works best in like a live setting though.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. That does bring up another question though. Do you
Hmm.
think there's a place for like reaction style content? I saw you reacted to, oh, it was a D-trans person. I don't remember the
Oh, was
name
it
off the
that
top of my head.
Ray person?
Yes, it was
Ray Alex
Ray.
Williams? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm curious, like, if you think there's a place for more reaction style content, because I've also noticed you don't do a lot of reaction style content. You do a lot of like
Hmm.
debate style stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I've also done a decent bit of reaction style content. I think it has its own place. Like, I mean, as with anything, like, there are pros and cons to any type of form of content. I think that with reaction style content, it can be a lot easier to flesh out like more nuanced points, where especially if it's like this person has like a really shallow surface level point and like you can really go into how exactly it's wrong on like a multitude of levels. Meanwhile, in like a live setting, sometimes it can be hard to get across like a nuanced point. And so, I think that as with anything, but there's these various pro cons, like kind of having a variety of stuff out there and what's going to appeal to different people is going to be different is kind of the best thing we can do.
it makes sense. Um, Somebody said, "Hi Naomi, how are you doing?"
Hello. I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay. I asked you earlier what your PhD is about.
Mhm.
They asked what your dissertation is about. Is that the same thing? Like that
So
question?
generally your PhD will cover like all of your research you do as like graduate student, and then your dissertation is going to be kind of like you can think of it as like your final project, your thesis. Like it's usually a little bit more specific.
Hmm.
And I guess I can go a little bit into that. But it's looking like my dissertation is probably going to be about like AI based malware detection and kind of seeing like where we're at in terms of capabilities, as well as like what are the common pitfalls, how we can like evade AI based malware detection, and then perhaps some synthesis about like what if we combine like other techniques with this and see if we can get something a little bit better. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And on the note of AI, do you
Mhm.
feel are you like a doomer on AI? Are you a zoomer on AI? How
I
do you
I
feel
think
about
that
it?
yeah, so I'm a computer scientist, so I think that like 99% of the use cases I've seen for AI are garbage. But there's like a 1% of like interesting research problems that we can look at. And really, I think the way that you need to conceptualize AI is like it's not something that's creating something new unless it's like hallucinating. Really, it's more of like a really well-tuned search engine, trained on like multitudes of data. And so if we think about something like malware, having like a malware search engine that's been trained on all the malware that people have like posted on the internet before, you would actually have like a really, really good basis of malware to build kind of a detection data set based off of. And in practice, it seems very, very good at handling like unobfuscated cases. But what's really interesting is there's kind of like a middle level of obfuscation, which I'm finding like can really circumvent the AI, where it's like if you have like just malware that's like really out in the open about what it's doing. The AI is really good at catching it. If you're like so obfuscated, it looks like bytecode garbage. The AI is good at saying like, hey, something weird's going on obfuscation. But if you have like kind of a middle of the road approach where it's like lightly obfuscated, the AI is really bad at catching it. And so this kind of leads like an interesting direction of like if we were to use kind of like AI based detection, it might push adversaries into like a different way of evading detection, and one that we might be able to catch easier with other approaches, like kind of some code analysis techniques.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kind of like that cat and mouse game.
Yeah, like computer security is absolutely a game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Mhm, yeah.
Do you think that AI is going to ruin creators' ability to be creative? All for all of humanity, it's
I
over.
mean, I think that I think what the big risk is that like a lot of like really big like media execs are gonna be like, okay, I don't want to hire writers or like animators or artists anymore, and then they're gonna like just generate a bunch of like AI slop. And I mean, I bet it will sell, but like the lack of human creativity in there, I think is just soulless. And
Yeah,
yeah, just like really sad to see. So I mean, and even in that world, like we'll still have like indie directors, indie animation, and I don't know. I really hope we don't get to that world, but we might.
yeah. I guess I do have a question. Like,
Hmm.
looking to the future, do you see the advancements in technology pushing us into like everybody's unemployed kind of dystopia? A like I don't know, kind of utopian future, like somewhere in the middle. Like where do you see it 50 years from now? Because
I
that's
mean, I think it's
enough
really going to
time.
depend on the political climate. Like, I know there was the whole like Yang Gang approach like way back when about like really with how much automation has been like taking jobs like we should be giving that money back to the people as a form of like universal basic income. I mean, I would hope that like technological advancements and things which make, doing the work that we need to keep a society alive like easier and automated. Like I would hope that as we do that, that society, the people would reap the rewards of that and not just, like a handful of tech billionaires and CEOs. And really like how that's going to shape out is going to depend on what the political climate looks like and kind of the protections we have for workers as well as just like social safety nets and reining in billionaires.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the political climate of the upcoming election? If we can talk about that.
Yeah, totally. I am really excited about the coconut pill Kamala train.
Yeah.
I was terrified about Biden losing to Trump, especially with like the cognitive decline that had been really ramping up. But like the energy, the memery behind Kamala, like I know that one of the biggest factors on why like Trump had such an upset victory in 2016 was like he had that meme energy behind him and nobody liked Hillary. But like Kamala is the meme brigade. Like you can't stop the coconut train.
Yeah. Would you say that you are coconut pilled?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100% based in coconut pilled. I will be coconut pilled until the day in which Kamala's elected, and then we'll go back to ACAB. She can be doing better. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
did you see her recent ad? I saw an ad and it was really good.
Yeah, no, I've been seeing like a lot of the stuff she's been putting out for her campaign ads, and she is on point. Like she was really prepared to like take this nomination and really run with it, and I've been very happy with that so far. Just like
Yeah,
from a standpoint of hope and a standpoint of like the energy she has behind her, and like how the right wing has nothing they can run against her. Like the best criticisms of Kamala come from like a left of Kamala critique, like about her cop shit, and like,
yeah,
the right wingers that are running like a persecuted felon, like, are they really gonna say, "Oh, Kamala like arrested people"? Like, yeah, and she'll arrest Trump too. Like,
yeah. Ideally. Okay. Somebody wants to know. They want. Oh my gosh, is that your cat in the background?
yeah, that's Percy. Percy,
Oh,
hi.
Percy. Percy's so
I guess
cute.
Percy was in here. Maybe. Oh, the cats love to like chill in the little beds over there. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked about your political trajectory or where you started politically.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, this is pretty crazy, but I was pretty conservative throughout most of high school. By the time I was kind of like a high school senior and then like my first like year or two in college, I was more of like a classical liberal, and then I've just gone left and left and left ever since. Especially like becoming more radicalized. Coming out as trans was a big like radicalization event for me, being like, oh gosh, literally like so many people want me dead or not be allowed to exist. That's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And just like really like actually educating myself politically instead of just kind of the like background Fox News that I had absorbed growing up for so long.
Yeah. Would you say that there were any other like radicalizing events or like radicalizing things that kind of kicked off for you, or what brought you on that leftward draw?
Yeah, I think that I mean a lot of it was like I've always had friends that were more left leaning than me, and they would always like challenge me on things, and that was like really good for me. And
Yeah.
also kind of one of the reasons why I really liked like the debate stuff was, I would have friends that would challenge me and push me on topics and points, and like they had definitely made progress in like where I was at politically. And then yeah, queerness was a big one. Um, Deconstructing my religion was another really big like kind of event in moving politically leftward as well.
Yeah. I can definitely imagine that being kind of something that pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
Um, Somebody asked, "Can you twerk?" And you don't have to answer that if that's uncomfortable, but
Honestly, not real. I've got the ass for it, but like my skill is just not there. I'm just too much of a quirked up white girl, unfortunately.
yeah, speaking of the ask for it, I'm pretty sure that I saw that you have an OnlyFans. Is that right?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
How did you get started with that? Or like, what has your journey with that been?
Yeah, so also when I was kind of getting into content creation, I had a close friend that was doing OnlyFans content at the time, and I was kind of interested in that as well. And I was like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. And especially when I was doing like kind of bigger on TikTok, like it kind of popped off for a while, and uh, I was really surprised. It can be quite a substantial amount of money, which was really nice. These days, it's not been as big, especially as I've been kind of taking a break from stuff, but like still having that little bit of passive income and like I enjoy being able to produce like more authentic transgender like sex content because
Yeah,
like so much of the porn that's out there online is just like so fake or dehumanizing or degrading and just like producing something that's more like authentic and real and like transnormative I think is a good thing, at least a step in the right direction.
yeah. I also think that's really important. Just to normalize. I don't know. It seems like a lot of trans content that's like popular on the internet is so like fetishistic and like
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah,
not
and like I just know like a lot of like the mainstream trans porn that like I've seen online just like really gives me the ick and like just from with how degrading and dehumanizing and fetishistic it is and like I want there to be content out there for people where it's like just like treating somebody as like a human, as a woman, as like a much more wholesome and real kind of like sexual encounter. And you can do that a
yeah.
lot more with like OnlyFans.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of porn is like that. Even with like cisgender women, it feels like a
Hmm.
lot of it is just extremely fetishistic rather than like focusing on organic sex. Or I don't know if organic sex is the right phrasing here, but like normal, like real.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
like mutually respectful. Like,
yeah,
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 no,
yeah,
absolutely. I'd say that's definitely true. Although probably you're less likely to be called a slur in the title of every video if you're a cis woman. But yeah.
yeah. Probably, probably. Uh, okay. Speaking about porn, Kitty Kim's
Ooh.
asked how you feel about her, but have you
Oh,
even
she's
heard of
cool.
her?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm oomfies with her over on TikTok and Twitter, I think. Yeah, she seems really cool. I thought it was really cool watching her go through like her bottom surgery journey because I've been really interested in bottom surgery for a while, and yeah, she seems really chill. I wish her the best. Absolutely.
Yeah. On the topic of surgeries in the bottom region, how did your
Hmm.
orchiectomy go?
Yeah, so I had my orchiectomy, testicle removal for those that aren't aware, this past Monday, and honestly, it was like just such an easy and pain-free experience that was like just an amazing recovery. Like the literally the hardest thing was trying not to strain myself those first couple of days because it's like okay, you can't lift more than 5 pounds and you should not be really trying to move like the first day or two. And I'm like, but I feel so great. I just want to like get up and do things again. And so I had my family there keeping me honest those first couple of days, which was helpful. Um, but yeah, honestly, like anybody that's considering Orky, it has been such an amazingly easy and simple recovery process. I was able to get insurance approval without any like letters or like having to do things on my end. Like the prior auth that my surgeon sent to my insurance just went through without any kind of intervention. It's ended up being like $1,000 out of pocket, so like not that bad at all. And as far as surgeries go, And yeah, I'm really, really happy. Like swelling is starting to go down, so I'm kind of getting an idea of like what the results are going to be more like. And
Yeah,
I am just loving it. Absolutely.
that's
And
awesome.
I mean, if we want to go into like some more specific things, like the hormonal changes, as far as not having testicles anymore, I am already feeling them in multiple ways, especially on the more like spicy side of things. Like
Yeah.
things feel way better down there. Um, absolutely.
Yeah. Can we talk more about that, or is that too
hmm
personal?
Yeah, we can talk more about that. So I would say like kind of the way that I would describe is like you're familiar with like the difference between like girlgasms and boygasms with like
Yeah.
HRT and like kind of the transition from that. It's like the girlgasm's even stronger after losing the testicles.
Really?
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
Also, no refractory period, which has been really fun to play with.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That is really interesting. I've been interested in an orky, but I've kind of been scared. I have some mental reservations, I think. And I feel like
I had so many mental reservations and medical anxiety. I would love to talk about that if you're interested.
yeah, no, I'm so scared of like surgeries or I'm so scared of the
hmm
doctors. I'm just scared of the
Yeah,
doctor. But
same.
how did you end up overcoming kind of that fear, or like what pushed you over the edge? What made you decide to like go through with it, I guess?
Yeah, so it was something where it's like, okay, I know I really want this, and I'm just gonna do it one step at a time and like keep myself distracted in the meanwhile. And what was really, really nice was I was able to get like a consultation scheduled by getting a referral from my primary care provider, and like she's awesome. And then at the consultation, basically they were like, yeah, we could schedule you out within like a week or two. And I was like, wow, that's really quick.
Yeah.
That's actually like literally perfect because I know that I'd be stressing about this the entire time. And so those like that like 2 weeks, I just like had a lot of friends and family, and people I care about around me, keeping me distracted, doing stuff. And then day of procedure, I had my sister-in-law there with me, and I was like shaking anxious like on the table before I was gonna get knocked out. But the medicine they give you at the hospital is very, very good. It definitely like calmed my anxiety like incredibly. And then it's like by the time they had me get moved from like the roller bed to the surgical table, they put this like mask on me, and then it was like I did like one breath and I woke up in the recovery room afterwards. So
Yeah.
as far as like experiencing anything bad, like you're not awake for any of it, and it's literally just a time jump.
So they put you to sleep, or is it just like nitrous oxide?
They put you full on to sleep. So I was under general anesthesia. For most orkies, they'll do general anesthesia. I think it's possible to get it done with local anesthesia if you want to be awake the whole time but not feel anything. Absolutely no for me, but I've heard of some people that have done that before.
Yeah, and then somebody just asked in the chat, did you have scrotum removal or did you leave that?
No, I kept the full labia. Yeah.
Do you intend on okay, also if it's too personal, you just tell me to shut up. We don't have to talk
Yeah,
about
no,
it. But
totally, totally.
do you intend on getting like a full bottom surgery for lack of better phrasing, or do you think you're gonna stop with like the orky?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, like vaginoplasty definitely interests me, as well as some like kind of more in between options I've seen are very interesting. I know that like you mentioned about like getting the scrotum removed. Some people do that. I don't think I really want to remove it because like I like the feeling of like having like my labia down there.
Mhm.
But I've seen options of like orchiectomy and then a further like labiaplasty, and that's also not like too bad of a recovery. So kind of just like reshaping the scrotum basically. Um, maybe I kind of leaving my doors open, and there's really like a lot that you can do, especially if you have like a really well trained surgeon with like a midline working incision. Like you don't really disqualify yourself from anything. And given how just like easy the recovery was, it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad that you've had a really easy recovery. Yeah, that's something I also worry about because I just
hmm
I'm scared of doctors. But
Yeah, and like I was told throughout the entire process that like an orchiectomy is like such a simple procedure. I mean, it's basically not any more invasive than a vasectomy is in like a cis man.
yeah,
And like even knowing that, I was still terrified. But just going through it myself was like, wow, I was really afraid of nothing. Like literally, I was terrified of absolutely nothing.
yeah. Do you have to supplement testosterone at all, or does your adrenal gland provide enough? Because I know that like cis
Mhm.
women also have testosterone in their bodies, et cetera, et cetera. And I have heard that some people have to supplement with a little bit of testosterone after getting their testes removed. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
like,
So I'm currently not supplementing with testosterone. I'm gonna get like my levels checked pretty soon with my like primary care
mhm,
and follow up from there. I probably am not gonna end up doing like the testosterone supplementation. Like you said, like both like male and female bodies will produce testosterone through the adrenal gland, and so after an orgy, essentially you have the same amount of testosterone production as any other cis woman would. And then the only kind of like question is, does the estrogen you take like suppress your testosterone further? And it can do that a little bit, but also like I've been feeling so great hormonally since the
yeah.
procedure, so I'm probably in a good spot, but we'll see once I get my labs back.
There's something I want to ask because I've done a
Mhm.
couple experiments on my YouTube channel where I have gone off of estrogen, just to let my testosterone peak again, just to like
Oh
experience
gosh,
I know it's kind of
that
crazy,
sounds that
but
sounds terrifying, but
no,
I'm absolutely interested.
it is, but I like to like track the differences in the way that I feel mentally and the way that like I feel like
Hmm.
my body interacts with things. And I don't think I'm going to do any more experiments like that, but I've done it
You've
a
had
couple
enough.
times. But I want to get your perspective on like
Mhm.
the I guess the differences in how you feel when there's more testosterone, less testosterone, like near no testosterone, et cetera, et cetera. So like
Mhm.
how would you kind of describe those differences from your own like
Yeah.
subjective experience?
I would say that for me, some of the biggest things have been like the vividness of my emotions. I mean, and I think that a part of this was just like me being pre-transition. I was like such an emotionally repressed person. And then there's definitely something real going on with like estrogen and the vividness of emotions, as well as like coming into myself and like being able to
Yeah.
actually feel my emotions. I think that both of those had a massive impact on me. And then other like mental effects. I mean, a lot of it's just kind of like how different emotions feel. Like it's really hard to describe, but like different emotions will feel differently depending on like the hormone that is dominant in your body. And then as far as like feelings of like pleasure and sexual stuff, it's completely different depending on what your hormone levels are like.
Yeah. Do you have any examples on like the way that different emotions feel different?
Oh gosh, it's like really, really hard to describe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's so interesting.
It is, it is. I'm not sure how to describe it. Like, how do you describe like what an emotion feels like? You know?
Yeah. I get that. I get that. I get that. Um I am curious kind of like what kind of estrogen do you take? Are you on injections or do you do
So
pills or
I do sublingual pills.
me too, me too. Um
Yeah.
mm, okay, I have questions, but I
Mhm.
don't want to like I don't want people to think I'm fear mongering, but
No, go for it.
um
Go for it.
I've been on pills for like a long time, right? Like a couple
Hmm.
years. And one of the like risks with being on pills for a long time is like the blood clots and things. Do you ever plan on like switching to a different intake method or do you just plan on just doing pills for like the rest?
So maybe, although I want to be clear about like the blood clot thing. As far as I'm aware, it's only for like oral pills that the blood clot thing is a known issue.
Yeah.
Because if you do sublingual, like you avoid the first pass through the liver, which means you're not going to have all that estrogen converted into estrone, and so it's not going to like impact with blood clots like more significantly.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't had any issues with that. I know that like depending on kind of like family history or other risk factors that it might matter a lot more. What I've kind of seen in like the research literature is that like basically like if you have like a risk factor, then it might be worth considering switching. But other than that, just like do what gets your hormone levels in the right place, what feels right, et cetera, et cetera. Although generally people are going to have the best experience with injections if you can manage to get yourself to inject. But I know I would struggle a lot with that.
Me too. I'm so scared of needles.
Yeah, same.
I am curious, have you ever heard of the estrogen pellets?
The pellets, oh, like the arm implant.
Well, some people do no. Implants come out, but the pellets they just stay in and then they're like biodegradable. They disintegrate.
Oh.
Dr. Powers was like pushing this. I don't know how you feel about Dr. Powers, but
I would say I'm generally a fan of Dr. Powers. I don't think he's perfect, but I really appreciate like the drive to innovate and to like really explore things and manage care on like an individual level. Um yeah, I don't know too much about the pellets, so those sound really interesting. Absolutely. I
yeah,
know
I've
he's
been
he's very big on like either injections or more of like the long lasting estrogen forms because You can get like a lot more stable levels with them.
Yeah, the pellets, I think they last between 6 and 12 months, and then you just have to like
Oh,
go re-up it. It's super interesting. He puts them in the butt cheek. I watched a video. It's like somebody
oh my gosh.
recorded them getting one. Oh, it was super interesting. And I was just curious if you had like heard about it. Yeah. I one question I do have, because you know
Mhm.
you're the research nerd here, but some people have said that having consistently high estrogen levels will actually be worse than like the like peaking that comes with injections or pills, etc., etc. Do you have any thoughts on that? Of like,
I think I
because
got some audio cutting out a little bit.
oh my gosh, okay,
So what I heard you say, you've heard some people express concerns about like consistently high estrogen levels might be worse than like more
yeah,
fluctuating levels if they're in kind of like a decent range.
like if you have a pellet that's keeping your estrogen high the whole time, that would be
Hmm.
worse for like transition results, I guess, than like weekly peaks or like daily peaks or like things like that.
Hmm.
Do you have any like research that you've read about that or like
I
thoughts on it?
know that it kind of matters most like right at the beginning of transition. I know that like it's that's one of the reasons why they recommend like kind of ramping up like your estrogen dose. And I know that like even with Dr. Will Powers, like he'll recommend that patients do like some oral estrogen like very early at the beginning, even
Hmm.
before switching to like sublingual or injections. Just because
Really?
it kind of mimics some of the more like estrone dominant types of estrogen that are really present during like early female puberty.
Yeah.
I know that, oh gosh, I'm not really aware of anything about like having a like for the later parts of transition, having like a consistently high level being bad for anything. I mean, honestly, like it's kind of a pretty emerging field of research, even just like recognizing what like hormonal birth control is doing to like cis women's hormone levels, like kind of in the long
Yeah.
term. And I would imagine it'd be pretty similar to that, where like if you're kind of having your estrogen levels more mediated, it'll be a little bit more like that in the long term. But ultimately we're gonna see with like the results as things come out more and more over time. But yeah, I'm very hopeful. Like we have a lot of really cool options that are being researched.
Yeah.
And if you want to get into like some really fascinating stuff, the research we're doing on like medical transition in rats is crazy.
Is it? Can we talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about
What's
that.
the tea? What's the tea here?
Okay, so some of the things we've been able to do in rats, we've been able to essentially come up with an injection that you can inject to convert gonads from one type to another. So
The
basically, in
ovotestes.
rats, we can turn testicles into ovaries and vice versa in rats.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. When
And
are
so
we
like
able to
the
like
idea is
try it
like if we
out?
could do that in humans, then like you would just get this injection and then you would just start producing the right sex hormone naturally.
Wait, do they have to inject it where I think they have to inject it?
Yeah.
Oh,
But it'd be a one-time injection.
true, true. Oh my gosh.
But
What,
currently we've done this in rats. It's just in rats right now. But
are
yeah.
they going to do human tests or like are those scheduled or like
I'm not aware of like the scheduling of like human tests involving this, like kind of going from the rat models to the human models and all like the like review board approval. It's gonna have to go into that. It's gonna be pretty crazy.
yeah,
But I also know we've done like a lot of like really intensive gene editing in rats, even to be able to like induce like full on sex changes, including like reproductive sex, like if we intervene early enough, which is really
really?
crazy.
That is really crazy. One question that kind of brings
Mhm.
up that well, okay, I don't know how to phrase this, but you said if it happens early enough. Is that meaning like in embryo? Is that meaning like in infancy? Like what is
Yeah,
that?
so the most success we've had in rats have been like gene editing done like in embryo, as far as like trying to preserve fertility, but in like a cross-sex manner. Things that happen like after embryo usually aren't fertility preserving.
Yeah. What? Okay, sorry. I'm trying to paint not paint a picture, but I'm curious of something and I
Mhm.
want to ask it in a careful way because I don't
Go for it, go for it.
yeah. What do you think causes transgenderism, for lack of a better term? Like, what makes trans people?
You know, I think that the responsible answer is probably it doesn't really matter. Like whatever seems to have people live the best, healthiest, happiest lives. Like I support people's American freedom to transition.
Yeah,
Like
no.
yeah,
God
I know
bless
there's always
America.
the debate about like born gay or whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, honestly, I don't care if you were born gay or if you just want to kiss boys. Like
Yeah.
you do you. Um, But then if I want to get into like what I actually think, I think it's probably a combination of like genetic factors, hormonal factors in the womb, and social experiences, especially if we're talking about like, you know, gender as like a social phenomenon, and especially if we're seeing people that like their dysphoria might be a lot more social in nature versus people that might have a lot more like biological or medical dysphoria in nature. Like there's definitely some social stuff going on there too. Um, as far as like kind of the data I've seen on more of like the medical stuff, there's definitely some interesting things going on with like twin studies with like gene heritability. As far as trans identity, like I know this is the common joke, but like if you're trans, given like what we know about the gene inheritance, like there's a decent chance your dad might be an egg or a repper. Um,
Yeah,
like if you've ever talked to your dad about gender dysphoria, you might be surprised about what he thinks about it.
yeah,
And it's been a pretty common experience in a lot of trans people. As far as other kind of like hormonal stuff, we do have some very limited evidence of like different hormonal environments in the womb having an impact on like trans identification later in life. I know there was one interesting finding related to this like very potent form of estrogen that was used to help pregnant women like a couple decades ago. And what we found was that like they're like having that potent form of estrogen like impacted kind of like the kids in a way that they were like more queer than kids that were not on this like potent form of estrogen in the womb.
that's really
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and so that one's not really used anymore. It didn't really do too much apparently in terms of like the outcomes.
Yeah,
Um, but that was one we had. We also know about like some potential like genes that are being kind of found in commonality with trans people, like actually impacting how the body is going to metabolize, utilize hormones. And then I think there's might be some truth to kind of like the transgender brain hypothesis, where when we know about like how development works in utero, it's like development of the brain happens a lot more like second trimester, third trimester. Meanwhile, development of like the genitals and the gonads, like you start down those paths more like first trimester, second trimester. So like in theory, like a shift in a hormonal environment could lead like your reproductive pathway going down more one direction, and then more like neurohormonal pathways kind of going down a different direction. And that would make sense kind of with what we saw with like the potent estrogen, like and the data from that.
yeah. So I guess in that case, I can ask this question. What would you like? I guess what would your thoughts be? Like, okay. Assuming
Hmm.
the CRISPR sex reassignment could
Hmm.
translate from rats to humans,
Hmm.
what would your thoughts on like doing that to like embryos, babies, fetuses, I guess that's the better
Hmm.
term, that
Yeah.
are like showing signs or signals that they're likely to become transgender later in life. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that on one hand, we would need to know like how good our predictive accuracy is before we can make any kind of decision. But then we would also have to be very careful to make sure we're not like essentially like socially renormalizing, like the thing that we did with intersex babies for the longest time, where it's like there has been so much of an effort to like make intersex babies like quote unquote normal,
Mhm.
that like we would hide this from them and like perform surgeries on them like without their knowledge as like young babies, um more like to appease some kind of like social notion of like correctness rather than like letting their bodies exist as they naturally are, especially in cases where there's like no actual tangible harm of them being intersex. Um, and so I think there's a lot that we have to manage, and we would really have to like, oh gosh, I think we'd have to have some really, really strong predictive capacities, as well as like knowledge of outcomes, in order to be able to do this with any kind of like gene editing power. It's really complicated. It's really complicated.
Yeah. Well, thankfully it doesn't exist yet, so it's not something we actually have to cross that bridge for. But
Hmm.
okay. Let me see. Okay, so somebody wants to know if you could choose any superpower, what superpower would you choose?
Ooh. It might be teleportation. Like, it would just be
Teleportation.
so convenient to be able to teleport wherever I need to go.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all the time.
I wonder if there would be like a cooldown or if you could just like instantly just like pop pop pop.
I hope there's no cooldown. If there's no cooldown, like then I just go full quantum. Like I'm everywhere.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that'd be pretty insane. I also wonder if it would like take into account the fact that we're hurtling through space, or if you like try to teleport and you just end up like floating in the vacuum. That would kind of suck.
Yeah, I mean I guess like I would assume that like you would preserve inertia even when teleporting, right? Like because like the Earth's like rotating or whatever, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if I teleport, in theory, I should still preserve that inertia of like I'm rotating with the Earth. I would hope so. If not, you would get some really bad whiplash.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure.
Probably,
Oh,
probably life-ending whiplash.
another question would be: if you teleport, is that really you on the other side, or is that like a clone of you on the other side?
That's a great question. I have no clue, honestly. It's like
What,
the Star Trek duplicator, right? Like
yeah.
that discourse.
What's your headcanon on it? What do you think?
Hmm. I mean, I think she would be me enough. Me enough. Absolutely.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, let me. There were a couple other questions that I.
I mean, on a similar vein, are you the same person that wakes up every morning?
Um, personally, I don't think so. I think that we are
Oh.
constantly different for like different people through our lives,
Mm-hmm.
separated by time. But I would even apply that to like way smaller time scales. Like
Okay, okay.
from like morning to evening, I'm probably a different person. I've learned new things. My brain is going to process things slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But that's just because I don't know. That's just the way I like to view things. Okay,
Okay, fascinating, fascinating.
somebody said, is there any pharma for treating hair loss that at the same time doesn't destroy my tea and make me a eunuch? This
I
would be
would
for like a cis male.
I would
Not
think I
yeah.
would think finasteride. So finasteride doesn't impact T. It blocks like the T to DHT conversion. So usually it's DHT, which is like a more potent form of testosterone that causes a lot of like the male pattern baldness hair stuff. And there's finasteride or dutasteride are medicines which specifically block like the T to DHT conversion while leaving the T itself untouched. Those might be ones to look into. I'm not entirely sure how minoxidil works, but I know it's another commonly used one for like hair growth. I know
Yeah.
that one's been used by transgender men to some pretty decent success. Although I need to look into more about how that one works. I don't know as much about like stuff that's more commonly used for trans masculine individuals,
Yeah.
but that's
Okay.
another at least name of medicine you could search.
Okay. And then that actually sparks a question for me.
Hmm.
Does progesterone increase DHT levels? I feel like I read that somewhere, but then
So, not to my knowledge, what I do know about progesterone is that it actually has a mild like anti-androgen effect, where
really,
progesterone does do a little bit of like T blocking. Hmm.
that's awesome. Are you on progesterone?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Nice.
And I take it the difficult way all the way every night.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are boofing Prague here in Naomi Nation.
Yeah. I've heard it is more effective that way, but is it some people have also said it's not effective if you take it orally due to the like first pass liver effect.
Yeah, I mean
Do
the data that I've seen has pretty much conclusively showed that like for your average trans woman, like you are not going to achieve cis female levels of progesterone unless you're boofing 2 progs a night,
two progs. So
like 200
well
milligrams. Yeah,
oh gotcha.
because most of them are prescribed in like the 100 milligram doses.
Yeah, I have the 200, so
Oh, they
I might
only one a
overdose.
day.
Yeah.
Only one a day.
Okay, okay. Um, I am curious what you think about how do I want to phrase this? Okay. Well, somebody in the chat wants to know, have you ever heard of transmaxing?
I have heard of
What do
transmaxing.
you think
Yes.
about transmaxing?
Like the manifesto or the concept in the abstract?
Yes, let's do both
Okay.
separately.
Okay. Oh gosh. I've seen like the transmaxing manifesto, and I think that this person is probably just a severely mentally ill trans woman. Um, but really fascinating to observe. Like it's really really interesting how like they talked about even in their own transmaxing manifesto how like oh I'm just doing this to like maximize my like sexual market value or whatever, but then they're also like wow, like colors are so much more vivid and I can actually like feel my emotions for the first time in my life. It's like, yeah, you're a trans woman. Like,
Yeah,
um, I think that in a lot of cases, people that go down like the trans maxing pipeline or whatever, like they're just like very mentally ill trans women that like this is how they cope with being trans. Um, but like honestly, power to you. If you want to be a girl, you can just be a girl.
real, real. And then I'm also kind of okay. This is not on the same okay, not on the same thread, but on a similar thread. What do you think
Mhm.
about like the all the D-trans creators on the internet? Do you feel like most of them are good faith or bad faith?
I think that most of the ones that have a lot of traction behind them are pretty bad faith because, like, if you want to do like the bad faith detransition grift, like get flown around by PragerU all across the country to testify at every, anti-trans bill, like Chloe Cole style, like, yeah, I mean that seems to be the kind of people that get the most traction. But it's been also fascinating to see what's come out about Chloe Cole, like with her lawsuit against the people, like the doctors that performed her trans healthcare.
Yeah.
What was revealed in those documents was what caused her detransition was she took way too much acid and hallucinated a Holy Spirit telling her that she'll always be a woman and that she needs to detransition. Fun
Wow.
fact. That's in her court case documents that have been unsealed.
That is fascinating.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of these D-trans people will end up retransitioning, or do you think that like they'll just keep grifting, or like I've talked to more D-trans people than I'd like to admit, but
Yeah. I
a
think there's
lot.
probably a little bit of both. I think that like there's such a wide variety of detrans people. Like it's really hard to like come up with like a singular cohesive like detrans label that describes everyone because like I've seen a lot of like genuine detransitioners where it's like they reach a point where they're like, I don't think I am a trans person, but like transitioning when I did was like the right choice for me, and like now I've ended up with kind of more like an induced intersex body, and like I'm all cool with that, and like this is just
Yeah.
like part of my life path and my story, and like very well adjusted about it. Like ultimately, people should have this freedom, and like you know. I mean, honestly, like as a detrans person, you're not going to end up any worse than like a trans person would end up as far as like transitioning to their desired gender.
True.
Um, and also like the other big thing is like I think that like for so many people it's just like a lot to do with like how well adjusted they are about their transition. Like people that detransition in like an LSD induced haze are not gonna be very well adjusted about it, and they're gonna take that outlet like externally somewhere that's not productive.
Yeah.
There's just so many different, and then yeah, you see people that like they say they're a detransitioner, where they're like, I still struggle with these like desires to transition every night. Like in my dreams, I'm still the opposite gender, and like it's clear that it's just a cope for them. Like there's a whole wide spectrum of detransitioners, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that is really fascinating. Um, I am curious to if I like list names, can you tell me what you think about people if you've heard of them?
Okay, okay, yeah, go for it.
I know you've heard of Ray Williams, and he actually wanted me to interview him, and I'm not sure if I will yet, but we'll see. But I'm curious what you think of him.
I think he's weird as I have no clue what's going on in him. Like I can't even tell. Like, did he like have a religious conversion, or was that part of his like detransition?
I think it was
Apparently, his spouse is also like a detransitioner of some sort. Like, they are really weird. I do not know what's up with them.
yeah, it's definitely a situation. I think he like really leaned into like the I don't want to say the Christian cope, but his
Uh-huh.
YouTube looks like it was a real Christian cope right after, and he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
He doesn't even get a lot of traction. I guess he's just doing it for the sake of the grift. But um,
Yeah. Yeah. The thing was like I kept on seeing like his videos like popping up my recommended like just a handful of views, and it's like so much of like Christian stuff, but also like so much of like stuff that seemed like he might not be a Christian. Like I just can't tell what's going on with him. I don't know if he like
yeah,
goes through an identity crisis every week or like I just don't know. I don't know. Or it
yeah,
could be bait. I have no clue. I have no clue.
it could be bait. It could be bait. Have you ever heard of Laurel?
I don't think so. Who are they?
He's another D-trans person, and his wife, they were like super Mormon, and then they like
Whoa.
de-Mormonized themselves, but then like he had like surgery complications with his SRS.
Mm.
And then he really regrets that. So he transitioned, and now he really
Mm.
regrets it more. But just okay. What about Phil Illy? Have you heard of Phil Illy?
No, who's that one?
That's not a detransitioner, but I'm actually not sure the pronouns. They're the author of Auto Heterosexuality. They have like this like headcanon. It's like an AGP thing.
Okay,
If
okay.
you're familiar with AGP.
I am familiar with the fabled AGP.
Yeah. What do you think about that, just in general?
I think that it's like 99% bullcrap.
Yeah.
I think that like the small little kernel of truth in there is that like for bottoms, a lot of like their sexuality is focused on themselves, and this is also true in cis women. And we've seen a lot of studies that like using these same kind of criteria to diagnose AGP in trans women, you also hit like 90% of cis women because most of them are bottoms.
Is that the AGP HSTS like dichotomy, top and bottom?
Uh, mm, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not entirely. Maybe not entirely, but
Oh my gosh. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Okay, trying to think of other names. A lot of them I'm just assuming you wouldn't know because they're like small. What about Ronnie
yeah.
Gladden?
Ooh, no, who's that?
Ronnie Gladden is a transgracial person, transgender and transracial, from black man to white woman.
Oh no.
Um,
Like an Ollie London kind of situation?
I don't know if it's like an Ollie London kind of situation. They're a professor at like a university. So I feel like it'd be
Whoa.
really weird to be like an Ollie London kind of situation. And they
Huh.
teach like gender stuff. It's like a gender and
That's
like
crazy.
yeah, no, it definitely is crazy. Do you have any thoughts about like transracial people? Or not people, but like the concept of transracialism, I
Yeah,
guess.
I do want to be clear. Like, there has been more of like a historical context in which the term transracial was used to refer to like people who were adopted into like a different race family.
Oh, gotcha.
And so
My
I
apologies
think you're
then.
meaning transracial in the sense of like somebody could like change their race, like a transgender person change their gender.
Yeah, that I just use the same like format.
Yeah,
That's my bad.
I
My bad.
I would say I'm a lot more skeptical of like transracial
Hmm.
as a concept than I am of transgender, because I don't see any kind of like underlying mechanism for it, as well as like a lot of the ways that we define race are based off of like your lineage, and like that's not something that like that's kind of like the core element, especially when you're talking about like race on like a systemic level. Um, that's just not present in like the transracial allegory.
Yeah, that
Like
makes
there's no
sense.
kind of like permanent lineage thing of like, oh, like it's not like boys come from boys come from boys come from boys come from boys. Like, you had a pretty much 50-50 chance of popping out either male or female,
Yeah.
with
Well,
some exceptions.
can wait. Okay, so I know that two women can have a child, but can two women have a boy child?
I mean, I thought they usually use a sperm donor, so yes.
No. Oh my gosh. No. I might just be having a moment, but I swear I
Uh-huh.
read something that they can take genetic data from one woman and put it inside of another woman. I could
I
just
know we've
be
done that in rats. I don't think we've done that in humans yet, but I know we've done that in rats. You're
if we
talking
do it
about
in if we do it in
you're talking about
rats.
gametogenesis, yeah.
I am. I'm not sure what the word is. I will take your word for it.
Uh-huh.
Are you able to produce boy rats out of that?
So in theory, like you would be doing intensive gene editing to convert like, cells of one type into like sperm or eggs, and you could do further gene editing to like influence what their sex is gonna be. Yeah. So yeah, in theory, yes. Like if we can do full on gametogenesis, I'm sure we can like pick what chromosome we're gonna put on there, or even like more specifically, like turn on or off certain genes that are related to like sex determination.
Yeah, but it would still be like an XX boy. It wouldn't be like an XY boy. Cause you can't make a Y,
Hmm.
can you? Cause Ys are
It
like
it probably would end up being like an XX boy. Yeah. Probably with some gene editing.
base. It would be really cool if they could make a Y, cause then they would be the actual like atom of like their lineage.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Anyway, sorry for getting distracted here. I'm trying to think of other questions. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm lacking. Is there anything else that I should ask you about? Do you have any like hella good lore that
Hmm.
I'm missing out on?
Let's see. I think the rat stuff we were talking about was really interesting. That's something that I learned more about recently. I was like, wow, like how far we've gone in like sex change, like gene editing, injections, et cetera, in rats. Like for the people that are like, oh, biological sex is just like so predetermined and immutable, it's like, and this is true in like all animal species. It's like, well, if you look what we've done in rats, it's completely far from that.
What have we done in rats? Because I'm unfamiliar with the lore here.
Yeah, so like basically we've been able to like turn on and off specific genes in embryo and essentially be able to like mix and match choose like the sex characteristics of rats as they come out and they're born. And we've been able to do like in rats that are like alive adults, like getting their testicles to switch into ovaries and vice versa. And I think that that's really probably the most promising thing for like trans healthcare in the future is like the testicle to ovary flip flop. Because it's the exact same gene that like we used in rats. It's something that's present in like clownfish and like the fish that change sex. And so we're like, oh, I bet we could use this gene in rats and like produce the same thing. And like, oh yeah, we can. And
Yeah,
that gene is also present in humans. So in theory, it's also going to be possible in humans.
that is really cool. Um, what would I Google if I wanted to learn more about that?
Uh, you would probably want to Google. Oh gosh, there's a lot that you can. We're like sex reversal in rats. Gametogenesis is like the making sperm and egg cells is another really cool one to look at. Like sex change in rats, like that. Those would be probably the biggest ones. Sex reversal or sex change.
Okay. And then I sorry to jump around so much, but I'm curious how you feel about like um kind of like DIY HRT, but not really
Hmm.
like in the sense of like well, actually yes. We'll just start there.
Like from a moral standpoint, or from
Uh,
like a
I don't know. I just want to start there because then I'm going to ask about like DIY experimentation because there's a lot of like groups that are
oh
like of like trans people that do experiments on themselves to figure out stuff for science. But I'm curious like
yeah,
if
I
you
think
yeah.
that kind of at a high level, like ultimately, I would love if like trans healthcare and trans medicine was performed by highly knowledgeable doctors that had the trans community's best interest at heart, and this was accessible and like not being, blocked by conservative legislatures or like too long wait lists, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm a realist and I understand that like there is a greater need for this than sometimes people have access to. And ultimately, like people are going to do what's best for them, and there's a lot of steps that they can take to make sure that they're being safe while they do that, and that spreading education, especially about like, oh, make sure you're getting your hormone levels checked. These are the kind of tests you want to run. These are kind of the ranges you're looking for. Like spreading information about that, I think, is the best thing that we can do. Just recognizing that like whether or not we want DIY HRT to be a thing, like people are going to do it, and so just helping them be as safe as possible is as best as we can do.
Yeah. And then I guess I'm curious and I also want to get like
And then
very
also, I mean, we can always like reduce the demand for DIY by like, not legislating trans people out of existence and stuff like that.
real
Obviously. Yeah.
and based and hopefully coconut pilled, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I am curious what ways like DIY experimentation groups or we DIY let's call them study groups because that's a lot more
Hmm.
palatable of a term um would be able to like stay safe or like what do you have any like I guess recommendations for them because a lot of the people that watch me are kind of interested in this like
Oh
DIY
gosh.
doing experiments yeah. So I guess I'm curious from like your perspective as like a researcher, how can
Hmm.
we make sure that we're getting good data and also staying as safe as possible while we're doing things that might not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I do want to give credit, like, throughout the history of medicine, you'd be surprised at like how much of modern medicine was like a scientist like determined to prove themselves right and ending up experimenting on themselves in order to prove their theory.
Yeah.
And although we don't need to do that in every case anymore, which is a good thing, like as far as like best practices when doing kind of like DIY self experimentation, I would say is document everything. Like document like the doses you're doing, the steps you're doing. Like make sure you have a repeatable process that like somebody could read what you did and they could replicate it themselves. Try to get as many tests as you can done, especially things that are going to be relevant, things that are going to be like especially safety parameters. Like, if you're doing something that's going to impact your hormones, like getting your hormone levels checked. Like I did lactation and like I got the nutrient contents of my breast milk tested, which is about as far as we've gone in like the research literature involving lactation and trans women too. So that was really cool.
Base?
Yeah, and then like you can always publish in like an open source or like an open access way, so that other people can look at that and verify your results. And also just being very careful with your language of like this was a self experiment. Like at best you could consider this a case study. This is not peer reviewed. Like proceed with your own caution, acknowledging risks and that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a potential for like if people publish reports like this self-published, like doctors might catch on and want to do things in a more clinical setting. I know that that's happened in multiple cases before. Like a lot of the ways that case studies actually end up getting published in the research literature is because somebody essentially does most of a case study themselves, and then they come to a doctor and they're like, "Hey, can you help me with this? Or can you help me publish this?" I actually talked with my primary care about potentially publishing a case study involving like my translactation.
Oh, really?
That's how these things usually come about. So if you've got like a really cool doctor, especially one that's interested in publishing, they might be able to help you out with that too. And they'll know a lot more about like keeping you safe and things to document and stuff like that.
Based. Okay, thank you.
But
Okay.
you gotta have a cool doctor. Lame doctors might be like, "What the heck are you doing to yourself?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, and then I guess I'll end it on an easy one.
Okay, okay.
What kind of music do you like to listen to? Like, what's your current, what's your jam right now?
Oh, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of Chapel Roan lately. Like, I've been into like the queer girly pop as of late, especially. But I
Yeah.
mostly listen to like a lot of like indie rock and indie pop.
Do you have a favorite song from Chappelle Roan?
Ooh,
Chapel Roan?
ooh,
Wait,
ooh.
is it Chappelle or Chapel?
It's Chapel.
I've always
Yeah, I
said
know, right?
Chappelle in my head, but that's
You've
what I
been
get
you've
for
been
reading
got
it.
by the woke mob. Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite song right now, probably "Naked in Manhattan."
Naked in Manhattan. And do you have a favorite band from the other group of categories that you listed?
Yeah, I love Two Door Cinema Club.
And do you have a favorite song by them?
Favorite song by Two Door Cinema Club. Probably Undercover Martin. That one's just really, really solid. Really solid song.
Bass. Okay. And then, sorry, I said that was the last one. I lied. If
Ah,
you had to recommend one
liar.
of one of your videos, because let's push people to your YouTube.
Hmm, hmm.
That's a long standing platform. If you had to push people to one of your videos, what would you recommend they watch?
Oh, easy peasy. Check out the Kelly Cadigan debate. It is a wild ride. You're going to be on the edge of your seat every minute of the full 3 hours.
Okay, base, thank you. And then, did you want to like
Absolutely.
shout anything else out, or like I don't know, links or anything? Also, if you send
Yeah.
me links, I'll put them in the description.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I'm nominal Naomi. I'm a PhD candidate and I do a lot of like trans politics research, et cetera, et cetera. Feel free to check me out on YouTube and Twitch and sometimes TikTok as well. We'll see if we get the TikTok up and running again. But yeah, I have a link tree. You can pretty easily find me over on Twitter and all my links are available through there. Also, registered the spicy side. Would love to have you on board there. So yeah, please check out anything. And it's been great answering all your questions. And yeah, your audience seems like really engaged, and that's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting. We really enjoyed, and I'm sure this will be a hit with the people that watch my content. So
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, my pleasure. Bye.